Geez, you're mobile.
I know. I feel like second day where I didn't get my seat.
Yeah.
I just made it my mission to move around the class.
Very good.
I also have a quick question. Did you want us to print out the schematic thing? So typing
Yeah.
I didn't print it out. I wrote it down.
Okay, well, we're gonna share them with other people, so, well, is it in here?
Yeah, I remember. My notebook.
Okay, well, either if you wrote it down or typed it up is good because you want to practice. But writing it down works also. You're just early all the time. Don't let me discourage.
Was it only the yes and no? Huh? For the part one, was it only yes and no? No, it was inside this place. Oh, we didn't do that part, I think. We didn't do that. We put only yes and no. Oh, we did that part also. I didn't just put yes and no. I know.
Spread that around and Any questions before we get started this morning? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, still missing a few. However, since you're here on time, we don't want to hold that off too long. So we're going to go ahead and get started unless you got a question. Any questions on what we're going to be doing for the first part of the project? I know we talked about it kind of briefly on Tuesday. No questions there? You know, obviously, if you end up with a question, make sure you call me and talk to me. Don't just guess and hope for the best. Okay? Just try to get in touch with me. All right, so we're going to continue on with phonetics. You're going to see that we really get into the phonology part with the stuff that's going to come up Tuesday, particularly one of the homework assignments. So here's the ugly red slide for Tuesday. We're going to look at the consonant matrix. That's the thing that you worked on homework 4, part 2, and finish that up. So you've got the whole thing completed. And then I'm going to bring out page 107. I'll talk about page 107 in the book, but you should compare it against page 107 and also get used to the format of the information in the chart on page 107. It's a lot easier to follow and it's much more condensed, and we'll be using that as we go forward. But when we talk about page 107, you'll know what I'm talking about, and then use that to correct your work. We've got a few extra exercises out of B that we didn't do this time, mainly because they had to do with manner of articulation, and that's what we're going to be covering today. So finish up 3, 6, and 11 in exercise B. And then complete exercise C. It's pretty short, but it'll be kind of challenging because it's going to be asking you something that you probably never really thought much about. But it'll also be wrapped around some of the things that we're reading in the remainder of the chapter, okay, 110 to 121. And then my suggestion is you take that consonant matrix. I put an extra one out there. I call it practice consonant matrix in the homework handout, homework assignment handout. Do it a couple times for yourself, right? It's much better for you to get in there and practice it and just get used to, hey, what are the relationships between these things? We'll talk about those as we go along today, but also just get a little bit of practice. Now, you're going to find that the information that you're doing in here is also going to be on the table on page 107, but it'll be a different format. And I do that on purpose to hopefully get you thinking about how these things work before you start looking at a simplified chart and try to memorize it. Much better to learn it than it is to just memorize it. So complete this. That'll be part of your homework. B's 3, 6, and 11. Complete exercise C. And then read the rest of the chapter. Practice. You'll have that practice out there. You can practice it as many times as you want. Okay? Now, you don't have to turn that in, by the way. It's your own personal practice. Okay, then we talked last time about ipatyping.org. I want you to remember, did anybody have trouble using it? I asked that because I used it last Friday and everything worked great. And when I went in to use it on Monday, it was broken and it didn't work. And then Tuesday it was working again. So anyway, we're going to use that to transcribe your project, part 1. If you, and just as a reminder, if you have a regular symbol like A, B, lowercase I, Z, etc., just use those from the keyboard. Don't try to find something kind of like it in the IPH chart that they have there. Just use the regular symbol. Then use the chart for the special symbol by clicking on the appropriate button. And then once you've got it spelled out in that box, copy and paste it, put it into a Word document or something like a Word document, and then save the final document as a PDF. Remember, if you don't put it in a PDF, you may find yourself hitting a printer or hitting a computer So save that final file to PDF before you turn it in. Okay? So now what I would like to do, just real quickly, is to look at this, just real fast. You remember that we know most of the symbols are already things that we use regularly. And they mean pretty much just what you would expect them to mean. I've mentioned that there are a few differences that you may choose to use. The J instead of the Y, the upside down R instead of the regular R, simply because in English, all we're really worried about is this R. If you get into a really international space, you start studying Spanish phonetics or Korean or Russian phonetics and so forth, you're going to find that these differ. And so the R means something else, but for our purposes, perfectly good this way. The other part that we have to remember is we have a bunch of different symbols that don't look like the things we normally use. We have the CH fade up, where it's like thin and thick. And we've got the EV for things like the and mother and other and all kinds of other words. It's different. You got to listen to them as they're spoken. We had shift, or we had the SH sound in two different forms. We had the J sound that we don't have a regular special letter for, but oftentimes will show up as an SU or a ZU in a word. And that has another special character that looks kind of like a cursive Z or a 3. We've got the CH sound, and we've got the J sound. And all 4 of these actually have a different symbol if you choose to use it. Remember that if you think about this one, the CH sound is actually like saying the T sound with a sh after it. And the J is a lot like saying the D sound with a sh immediately after it. So whichever ones of these you choose to use, try to be consistent. I don't care which one you use. Down here, we've got the sound, the NG, for things like sting, sting, sing, and stinger. We also have this glottal stop, which we won't run into very often, but we will see at least one place where that substitutes for T. Okay, and so we'll see that as we go along. That's as we get into really out of phonetics and over to the phonology side. Okay, questions on this one? Any questions? No? Cool. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to pair up. Pair up with somebody. If you're sitting where you really have to have a group of 3, that's okay. But I want you to take out the one part of your homework, which was the IPA stuff that you were supposed to do. Take that out. And I'm going to pair you up. So I want you to get into pairs or 3s and read your partner's transcription. Don't ask them what their name is. Just read their transcription and see if you pronounce their name correctly based on the transcription. So this could be a problem with you mispronouncing one of the IPA symbols or them misusing one when they wrote it. But is it correct? And if not, just kind of work together quickly to correct the name. The next one I want you to do is read your partner's city and state. So it's basically the same thing. But in this case, we're probably going to find some real differences in the way some of us pronounce the names of the cities and state. Pronounce your partner's city and state as it's transcribed. Is that the way you would pronounce it? I just want you to want to know if that's the way you pronounce it. And if they pronounce it or they transcribed it differently from you, could it still be correct? Could there a difference in the way they say it actually still be correct? And if not, work together to correct it. Okay? Only going to give you a few minutes. Won't take very long. So we'll take 5 minutes or so. Find a partner. Here's a pair, or here's a threesome. There's another couple pairs back there, some either 2 or 3. compare notes with what you had put down for IPA and what a partner, a pair or a person in the group of three. Okay, go ahead. I'll be interested to see how you did. Sure.
That's how you spell it.
We'll write it down. It'll take you long. It only takes a second. Right? Very good. Well, it takes a few seconds. If you know your name and where you live, hey, you're in like. So how you got it?
My I didn't come up like that. It was like up and down. Maybe it's wrong.
Like that. Lowercase I?
No, I think it's kind of related to how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. I just think of it regular. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Yeah. So, couple of.
But that's
And then for my life, I just like use the one that's on the dictionary. That's how I say it too.
feels like
Mine, like the one from dictionary is something similar to that. I just this one I got from the Webster dictionary.
Over the top.
how would you say card? I just don't know.
This would be a
Yeah, mine means soup and that.
So.
Yeah.
You don't go get it. It's okay. If you get to pronounce your name, you can say whatever you want. This, basically.
Just for mine, like I saw that for some of the words it was just like one letter representing the sound.
Yeah.
So it's not really even like just like
That's what I did with like with Illinois, because there was like more than the sound was more like one of the IPA symbols more than the flavor.
So I would put
Oh, it's wrong. Oh,
this one.
oh, but that's what I found it too.
And then on the most thing. Okay, cool.
I think the one you have for the Illinois, like the, not sure if that's the correct way, but that's what the dictionary says. Yeah.
Okay. Iran. I think we can have
You know, it's kind of make it like say slow sounds different. That's what happens. So that's kind of
Iran. And staple. Staple.
The one I'm really confused on is like the backwards C. I still don't know which one that is all the time.
Staple. What's the next one? D. Benwood. Now, we wouldn't want to use this one because we already said that was too far.
oh yeah.
Where do you live? Chicago. So I'm going to say you do something like this. Either one of those.
Bridge.com.
But Illinois, you say Illinois, or do you say Illinois?
Oh, really? Nice.
Okay, well, I don't think you understand.
But I've heard the phone, like it's a.
Yeah.
Are you lucky? No.
Illinois. So we'll get around to that in just a minute, okay? Okay, how you do? We don't know. Okay, so. Yes, okay. Some people say yes, most people don't. Some people say there's not that still noise. As you've got to be much better what noise. Yeah, oh, well, then we have to do something in there. The East State, oh, the two have to get together. I know. Yes, it is. It's very difficult. So, I think. Okay, well then. I know it is hard. That's definitely true. It is hard. How do you know? Selma seems to Selma. I agree with that. That's true. I don't know what this is. Selma. You go Selma, or you go Selma. So this is 8 hours, right? Like it's walking. Yeah, you lucked out. Yeah, okay, so that would be the way you would start, down and lay out. Can you say down and lay out or not? Right now, okay, great. You gotta think that's a bad English, say everything expressed. Fine. Cool, excellent. That was correct. And yes, I live with that. And I like Chicago, Chicago, that's okay. You put the S on the end when you say it? Okay, Chicago, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right, I'm wrong. That should be Chicago. You say Chicago. You say Chicago. Here you go. Okay, some people do. That's not, you won't be the only one. Okay, so how did you guys do? Now that you've had a chance to talk it over with somebody, I'd like you to redo it over the weekend if you didn't feel like you've got it right. And I know that there's one place in there that I needed to show you that I really didn't show you, and so that'll be a bad on me. First one since 1960. But that's not a good place to go. Let's go over here. I wanted to show you, I noticed a number of people tried to come up with the CH sound and the SH sound, and they did it by guessing, and it didn't work out quite right. So let me show you something here. IPA-org, you can be there. All right. Now, you remember that the CH and the SH had the letter, and then they had a upside, or they kind of had a tap over the top of it, right? The way to do that, I think it explains it down here, but I'm just going to show you how to do it. So let's take the ch sound, right? As in Chicago. Chicago. Well, first we know it would be a C. And then what you do right after it is pick this little symbol right here, that blue symbol, and it will put it over the top. So that one I didn't show you, and I realized that about 6 o'clock this morning ago time and showed that. But that would be the way you could do that. The same thing goes for the as in Chicago. Do the same thing. There's a regular S, but then we need to put that over the top. Okay, so that was my fault. Now I know a lot of people picked up this one because it looked kind of close, and maybe this one because it looked kind of close because you knew it was supposed to be a C with something. But in this case, it should have been C with the thing over the top. Now let's talk about the word the state. How do you say the state? Illinois. Illinois? Okay, cool. That's fine.
Illinois.
Illinois. A little bit different. Do you hear the difference? You got Illinois. It sounds like you said Illa. That's the way I say it too. Illinois. What else do we have? Some people do say it another way. So some people say Illinois. Some people leave the S on there. Or you had it just slightly different than that. Well, if somebody had Illinois with a Z. So some people would say Illinois, and some would say Illinois. And other people, if we were going to be real proper, would say, oh, you're not supposed to say the S or the Z at all. But the difference here is, let's look at a couple ways we could do it. Illinois. Right? Illinois. Another way might be like this. It probably sounds like this to me. Illinois. Anybody ever hear anybody say Illinois? This is Chicago, Illinois. No? Okay, listen carefully. This is Chicago, Illinois. So I do say it that way. Now you can't say that tomorrow when somebody says, did anybody ever hear anybody say that? Now you have, because I say Illinois all the time. But we could have done something like this. Lots of different ways we could do it. We could do the same thing with Chicago. How do you say Chicago? Chicago? Chicago. Chicago. Okay, I'm going to go like this and go Chicago. How else will you say it? Who else says it differently than that? I saw other people. If you have Spanish-speaking parents, how do they say it? Chicago. Okay. Now, it's kind of interesting. We got some people will say it with a ch on the front, right? A lot of people do. And it sounded to me like you did that, Chicago. Right? Perfectly valid way to say it because lots of people do. If you heard Chicago, even though you think it should have been Chicago, what would you transcribe? You would transcribe what you heard. In this case, it could have been Chicago. Other people, regardless of whether we did this, or we did the other symbols, like that, okay? Regardless regardless of which one of these we did, you could get people come in here and go, Chicago. Maybe not the people who live in Chicago, but a lot of people in the world call it Chicago. And they might do it with the shortish. The point is, listen to what you say. And as Christina said, man, this is hard. I don't want to have to listen to myself, but it'll be easier for you to listen to yourself. But later on, you'll have to listen to other people and catch those differences, right? So that's kind of the point here. So remember, there are lots of ways to pronounce a lot of these words. And oftentimes you're going to find people saying the wrong words, particularly in the video. You still have to put down exactly what they said, not what they meant. Okay? And if you think there's some places where you could make some adjustments in your transcriptions, just practice doing that over the weekend. Won't take long. 1 second, right? Takes you longer than that to get the idea. Okay? Questions? So if I were to say something like, I'm going to get me some of them oranges. That sounds like a cracker, right? I'm going to get me some of them oranges. What are you going to transcribe? I'm going to get myself some of those oranges? Or are you going to transcribe cracker talk, right? That's me. If I say y'all, you would put y'all. If I was really weird and said yous guys, I don't know where they say that, in West Virginia or Pennsylvania, you would put yous guys, right? So the trick is, as we look at these things, you're going to be putting down exactly what you hear, even if it's wrong, even if it's mispronounced, because that's part of the exercise. Okay? All right, so off we go. Let's continue on here. All right, so consonants. Now we talked about the characteristics or the distinctive features for vowels, right? Height, frontness, roundness, and tenseness, or their opposite, right? Now, when we get ready to do consonants, we're going to do 3 different characteristics, not 4, 3. We're going to be looking at the place of articulation, which you've already done when you did part 1 of the worksheet, and voicing, which we've also already talked about, and hopefully you put those in there. Either your glottis vibrates on a voiced sound, or there's no vibration on an unvoiced sound. And so we've covered these 2. What we need to cover today is going to be the manner of articulation. Now, I'm going to pull up a picture of Bubba. We've talked about that already. You can go through your book. It's got something similar. But he's familiar with the parts of the mouth. And when we talk about place of articulation, we've got several. One is 2 lips. We use 2 lips to make the sound. B, D, and M, and W are the ones that strike me first. Those are going to be called bilabial sounds because they're made on 2 lips. That's the place of articulation. The bottom lip and the top teeth. We've got 2 sounds in there that we use for that. Right? The F and the B. Between the teeth. We're going to call them interdentals for here, right? Some people actually pronounce them more like dentals, where they're coming behind the top teeth. But we're going to talk about here in between the teeth, because if you have students who can't say this, it may be a bit easier to show them how to do these interdentals by actually sticking your tongue out. And we typically do that, although it's usually so fast, people don't really pay much attention to it. So there's the between the teeth place. What do you think? What's the next place after we get past the interdental? What's another one?
Alveolar.
Alveolars, exactly, the alveolar ridge. T, D, N, probably L for most people. The alveolar ridge, the bony ridge right above your top teeth. If I move back one step from that ridge, what's the next one called? Palate. Is that the hard palate or the soft one? Say it loud so they'll hear it. Hard palate, exactly. It's the hard part of the roof of your mouth. And so those are going to be, that is the palate or the hard palate. And these sounds are called palatals. Come to mind. And then there is the soft palate. What is the soft palate called? Anybody remember? I'll start singing if somebody doesn't tell me. Right, it's the velum. I wasn't going to put it here. The velum. That is, if you run your tongue from the back, the ridge on top of your back teeth, just roll it backwards, and get into the hard palate or the palatals. And then if you go back a little bit farther, short of swallowing your tongue, you'll get to the soft palate where it's no longer that bony ridge. It feels kind of soft and squishy. That is called the velum. And so the sounds that we make there are called velars. And then finally, we've got the glottis. That's this area down here. Can you think of a sound that's done in the glottis? H, exactly. All you hear with an H is air or the friction of the air passing through your glottis. There's no, and then there's one other glottal sound that we make. Do you remember what that is? Yeah, actually, that's what it is. What do we call it? Yeah. The glottal stop, because your glottis slams shut, stops there, and then pops back open. It doesn't vibrate. It's just one simple thing like that. Okay, so those are the places of articulation. And so what I want to do here is I'm going to go over to this spreadsheet. This one should be what you completed over the last couple of days. We started it in class. And you should be able, and there's a copy of this out on D2L. It's called, what is it called? I think it's called Homework for Part 1B or T1B. So 1B, different than 2, has this, and it's got all of these. So you get up here, you go bilabial. Oh, D and P, wonderful. Alveolars, D and T. Velars, G and K. Notice these come in pairs of voiced and voiceless, voiced and voiceless, voiced and voiceless. That's kind of important. It's the thing that makes a T different from a D, or it's the thing that makes a P different from a B. Not very much, but it does change the sound, and we recognize it as English speakers right away. Now, the next group that I have down here, oh no, this time I don't have bilabials, but I got labiodentals and interdentals, alveolars like Z and S, and palatals like Z and Sh. And then also the glottal H. Right? Notice, until we get down here to the H, we've got pairs again. Yes and no. So V is voiced and F is not. Moo is voiced and thing is not. Yes, no, yes, no. And then down here on the H, for us as English speakers, that H is unvoiced. All we hear is the friction going through our throat. It's nothing more than Okay, no vibration. Now we get down to one more group here. These are both palatals. And once again, I've got a yes, and I've got a no. Notice that we can call these diagrams. If we use our old stuff from the book, it's just one thing with a hat over it. We could also look at it as if it were two consonants smushed together very quickly. And one is j, as in judge, and the other one is ch, as in church. Right? Once again, yes and no for voice. Don't forget, you can always use your throat to test this out. There is one other way you can do it, if you like, and that is like this. If you put your fingers in your ear and you do a B and then a P, you go. You look kind of silly, but hey, a test is a test. You might as well look silly and get a good score, right? Right. So if you want to, you can grab this in the class while you're taking the test. You can stick your fingers in your ears if you want to do that too. That works for me because you want to have something to help you remember. But when you plug your ears and you say a voice sound, you hear the vibration. And when you plug your ears and you say an unvoiced sound, you don't hear much of anything. So those are a couple of little tricks to work on. Now we get down here, we're going to look at something different. And that is the last three groupings. Notice over here with the last three groupings, it starts with M, N, and O. There are no voiceless sounds. When I get to this one, which are alveolar or palatal, the L and the no voiceless sound. And then when you get down here with what are called glides, the W sound, whoop, whoop, and yeah, those are voices. So notice something right off the top. You're going to see this when we go look at page 107. You look at page 107, the lower half of that chart has no voiceless sounds. And in the top half of the sheet or the table, with the exception of H, every one of them has a voiced and an unvoiced counterpart. Okay? So it's just another thing to start thinking about. How do I start arranging all these data points? Start looking for the relationships. What can you see? Now let's go on to page 107. You brought your book. I want you to become very familiar, more familiar actually, with page 107 and its layout. Because as we go forward, you'll see that all of this information that I've got up here is arranged, but it's a little bit different. Okay? The same symbols go across like this. The same places of articulation occur like right down here, just like I did here, actually. And so what we find out is we're going to take these things and we're going to put them into 6 categories or 6 manners of articulation, 6 different ways, different general ways that we make these sounds. Okay, and we're going to cover those next. But I want you to look at this, okay, when you've got an opportunity, and start corresponding what you've done on that worksheet with where it is here. And remember, the reason I did that was so that you wouldn't sit and just memorize this table. I want you to understand it, okay? Don't memorize first, understand it first. You won't have to memorize it, okay? Now, let's take a look. If you look across the top here, you will find that you have the same 7 places of articulation that I already mentioned. And it starts almost like you're looking at the front of the mouth going backwards, because I've got 2 lips, 1 lip, interdentals, alveolar, palatal, velar, and glottis. So we've basically done the same thing that we did here. We've just arranged it a little bit differently. Now, as I said, there's a key out there, so you can look at the key, or it'll have a 1B on it. So you can make sure that you've got all of these correct and all of these correct, which these should be really easy, right? Once you know what the sound is, you should be able to figure out whether it's voice or voice. That's out there. I put it out there this morning. And so the place of articulation and voicing is what we've already done. Now we want to look at reviewing exercise B. Once again, I have put a key out under the key section on D2L. So you can go out there and look up your answer and compare it with the key. And let's see, that is on page 109. And we've done a number of these things already, but number 2 is one that I really want to focus in on. First, look at number 1. We have the first one is the A sound, where we took the A and the E, kind of mushed it together into one character. That is the low front spread lax vowel. A. The next one was a voiced velar nasal, and that is going to be the sound, the NG, the combination there of in one syllable. And the voiced interdental fricative, well, that's going to be the TH sound that goes. Try to keep from spitting. The high back rounded lax vowel, that's a. I found out what that's called, by the way. It's not an upside down omega. Anybody know what that Greek letter is? Anybody care? Go ahead. Say no. Everybody cares, right? Epsilon. I'm only 67 years old. I just now found that out. But okay. And then the voiced palatal glide. We've got the glide, so there can be the Y sound. Now, what I really wanted you to look at was number 2. Okay? And on A, I have something there that's minus back and minus tense. We know that the only place we have tense characteristics and the only place we have back characteristics are in the vowels. But I told you that we have 4 characteristics to define each individual vowel, right? Did I say 4? 2 of them are here, back and tense. Well, what could that possibly mean? What do you think? What are back and tense vowels? There are 2 of them. Back, minus back and tense. No, that's not going to be. One of those is correct. The E, what's the other one that's minus back, which means the same thing as plus front, right? And tense. E. Huh? Nope, because that's way in the back. A, the letter E, right? The A sound, but the letter E. Now, the reason that that is kind of interesting is we oftentimes are interested in groups of symbols. What happens to one thing in a particular group oftentimes happens to everything in a group. And you're going to see that as we get into the phonology part. But when you see something like this, I've got voiceless fricatives. Once again, I told you there were supposed to be 3, but we've only got 2. So what are the voiceless fricatives? Okay. Always like a correct answer. The voiceless fricative. Okay, it's going to be, we haven't studied this a whole lot. It just would have been out of your reading. The S sound. Okay, all I'm hearing is the friction. I'm not hearing anything down. I'm not feeling anything down here. Same thing happens with F. The same thing happens with the TH sound, right? And the same thing happens with H, that's a fricative, and S, right? So I've got S, let's see, Sh, and H. The point is, you go in there and you look at that chart. We'll get a little more practice at it this next week. You look at that chart and say, where are the fricatives? Well, one of the rows in the chart on 107 is for fricative. It's probably the second row, right? And then it says I've got voiced and voiceless ones. Well, what do we have for voiceless fricative? On the top, F, theta, S, and H. So go over those. After you've looked at these, you could go in there and say, I want to know what all the glides are. Somebody look at that chart and tell me, what are the glides? This would be what we see for 2D. What are the glides? Huh? The last two, what are the sounds? The woof and the, what's sound out of that Y? Yeah, exactly. So if you go in there and says, hey, I can define all of the stuff on that row in that particular case by just saying I'm interested in the glides, and I don't have to worry about voiced or voiceless. I didn't specify which place of articulation. So this helps you grasp the idea that sometimes we are dealing with grouping of these. And like I said, you'll see that in a little bit later. Down on 4, well, we've got, what is the, identify the segment that differs in place of articulation. I've got the S, I've got the CH, I've got the T, and I've got the N. Which one is different? Number 4, A, S, or place of articulation, which one is different? The CH, exactly. All of the other ones were alveolars, right? They're up towards the very front of your mouth, but that happens on the palate. How about in 4B? I've got G, and Cynthia, which one is different? The what? Nope. Because that one actually happens in the same place as K and G. How about what else? Oh, I just gave it away. Unless you weren't paying attention, in which case I haven't given it away yet. The one that's different is the N, right? So go through those and kind of give a look at those. If I get down to the next one, okay, Cynthia, wind up, get ready. You ready? This is the time to be redeemed. You ready? I've got it. 4C. I've got a, here we go. I've got it. And I've got Which one was different? That's right. Exactly. Why? Because it's done interdentally. The other two, the other 3 were all done right on both lips. So that was what that one looks like. Let's see. On 5, the difference in voicing. Good. Oh, let's see. What is that one? And oh, let's see. Oh no, that's a J. Sorry, I've got G, J, and S. Which one is different in terms of voicing? The S. Very good. All right. And let's see. If I look at B, which one is different? Want me to repeat so I look silly? Huh? We're watching Indian Mayberry and the guy goes, Anyway. Which one is different in voicing? Nope. I know I'm not supposed to do that. I'm going to say something like, "Are you sure?" And then you go, "No." But I usually do that when you're correct, just to see if you're guessing. No vibration. No vibration. No vibration. Man. Okay. Wait. Why is that different? Because it's voiced and the other ones are not. Okay. That's kind of what we're looking at. I'm going to go over here. Mandy, I want you to tell me about number 7. In number 7, there is the word T and then IP, that diphthong in there, I. What is the word represented by TIP? Nope. Because that would not, the I and the E going together, what does that sound like?
Type.
Type. Exactly. It's the D, right? Because the I is the I sound. The transcription of nope. B, it's rich, right? The rich. The transcription, Sebastian, these, exactly, that is correct, these. And 10, just for grins, I'm just going to read you the letters going down and you can double check me later. It should be E, C, A, F, B, D. Okay? E, C, A, F, B, D would be the sequence of the matching letters. Okay? Now, there are a few left for you to do, like 11. Let's see, 3, 6, and 11. 11 is going to give you some more practice at transcribing words into IPA. So be careful with those. And remember, the way you say it may be different than me. So when we start correcting these next week, you can say, "John, I don't say it like that." Okay, because that's perfectly valid. And I have to deal with that when the time comes with the test. But you kind of got to face it. Okay, so that was exercise B. We've done that one. Again, the T is out there. It'll be available at 1:30. I would suggest you go back up and check carefully. Now, we're now down to this manner of articulation, the third characteristic. We had place, we had voicing. Now we've got to deal with the manner or the type of sound that we're talking about. And so let's take a quick look at these. First, we've got a group that we call obstruents. And I know if you look at the extra readings, you've probably seen this word. But it basically means there's some obstruction in the way the letter is sounded. And so we have stops. And just like the name sounds like, it completely stops the air and then pops open and the sound comes out. So stops, stoppage, and then a release of air. And along with the air comes the sound. We also have fricatives. We've mentioned these a bunch of different times. Fricatives are those sounds that you hear essentially just friction. You hear the air rubbing against some part of your vocal tract, and that's how the sound is made. Best example, another good one. Those are a couple of the fricatives. And then we've also got what are called affricates. These are the two that are made up of those two together, the T and the sh, or the B and the sh. It's a rapid combination, so we actually treat it like it's one sound. But the first one is a stop, like this, and it's followed by a fricative. So that's that's how you get something like out of. That's how we get that CH. The T is a stop, the sh is a fricative, and in rapid combination, it kind of sounds like ch. Much like D and J crammed together is J, as in judge. Okay, so those are the three obstruents. Those are the first three types of sounds that we make. Then we've got these things that are called sonorants. Mainly, they're called sonorants because they make more noise. And so nasal, these are the ones where your velum drops and some of the air goes up into the nasal cavity and makes noise. Examples? And So that's nasals. We've got liquids. There's two liquids, and O. Interestingly, it's the two letters that my wife doesn't really recognize. Sound escapes around or over the tongue. Depends on how you make the R. There's a couple of ways of making it. Mine is my tongue gets bunched up between my molars on the top, and the air kind of goes around the sides. And the L, well, my tongue is kind of like out on the alveolar ridge, but the air is still coming around the sides. Ooh. Those are liquids. And then finally, we have the glides. And the glides has some vocal tract constriction, but it doesn't really block it. In fact, these are oftentimes called semi-vowels. It's things like w and y. Whoop, y. They're called oftentimes semi-vowels because there's really no obstruction. But the shape of your vocal tract makes the change, partly because of the lips on the front for W and the tongue being up towards the top of your mouth, y, for the Y. Okay? So these are the manners of articulation. We had 7 places of articulation. We have 6 manners of articulation, and we have 2 settings for voicing. So let's take a quick look. Bilabial stops. So I'm combining the two, right? I'm combining bilabial, which are B, P, and M. But when I'm thinking about stops, it's only B and P. And as I look at this one is voiced, and this one is voiceless. Same thing happens with alveolars. The only difference between a D and a T is whether my voice or voice box rattles on the D. So D is voiced and T is voiced. But these are done on the alveolar ridge. So is N, but it isn't considered one of these. It's like this isn't because it's in its own class. Velar, back on the soft palate. Good, good, good. Say good, 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 good. You should feel your tongue kind of hitting the soft palate in the back. And does exactly the same thing, except one is voiced, the G, and one is voiceless. Okay. And then we've got this one down here. I throw it in here because it's just kind of an interesting sound. It's that glottal stop in uh-oh, or hit me, or kitten. Not a common sound, not an official sound, but it is definitely something that we do. So we've got 4 groupings of stops, right? And in these cases, voiced and voiceless, but this one's over on that side, nothing here, so it's a voiceless stop. Fricatives, got a whole bunch of these. In fact, I think we've got more fricatives than anything. We've got the labiodentals like and voiced and voiceless. Interdentals and voiced and voiceless. And as voiced and voiceless. And then we've got this G and sh, G and sh. Which one of those is voiced? The first or the second? G, sh. The first one. And so notice one quick thing, just the way I've laid this out, I always put the voice and then the voiceless after it. When you look at page 107, I think it puts the voiced one is always on top. Oh, sorry, got that backwards. The voiceless is on top in page 107, and the voiced is on the bottom. These are the fricatives, the sounds of friction. Affricates is where we take a stop and a fricative, and we combine them. And they're both done on the palate. J and ch. J and ch. Voice, voice. So that is the top half of the graph, right? Stops, fricatives, and affricates is the top of page 107. And most of these have both a voiced and voiceless counterpart. Now we're about to move into the sonorants. You don't really need to worry about the word sonorant. That's the classification. We're not going to worry about it. But we can get nasal. And I've got an which is bilabial, bilabial nasal, and alveolar nasal. Because when you say you can feel your tongue is right out on the alveolar ridge. And the last one is and when you go you should feel your tongue all bunched up and hitting the soft palate in your mouth once again. These are the nasals. Why don't I have two on here? Why don't I have two for each one? Remember the chart, the bottom half? In the bottom half of the chart, everything is voiced. Very good. So we don't have any voiceless ones here. They're all voiced. Same thing happens with the liquids. The alveolar L, and the palatal, in my case anyway, My tongue is bunched up between the back molars on the top and the sound's coming around the side. Now, some people do make this sound a little different. Their tongue is closer to the alveolar ridge and it's kind of bent back. It's called a retroflexor. But I don't make it that way. So some of them might. But the idea here is we're going to call it a palatal. And then we've got the glide, the semivowel. Whoosh. And yeah. Once again, it's in the bottom half of that chart. How many voiceless things do we have in the bottom half of the chart? 0. Okay, so we didn't even see my signal. Pretty good. Or did you? And then we said we had voice. Voice consonants have vibration here, you can feel it. Unvoiced consonants don't have it, so you just don't feel anything vibrating here. Most consonants, the whole top half of the chart, has both voiced and voiceless. And then finally, what's the last thing I'm going to say about voicing? What did we say about vowels? What do we say about vowels? They're all voiced, right? So that's the last bullet on here. Voiced consonants vibrate, unvoiced do not. Many of them have both voice and voiceless, but all English vowels are voiced. So we don't have to say anything about voicing with. Okay? So when we look at the articulation of the way consonants are made, the first part is placed. We get this whole list, 7. And on that chart, it is the horizontal axis towards the top. Right? Yep. It's that top level. Then we've also got manner. We've got 6 of those. And so going down the side of that chart in the same order. And then we have voicing, either yes or no. So honestly, if we were to look at just these 3 things, we have 4, 7 times 6 is 42, 84 letters. We don't have 84 sounds in English. Okay? 84 consonant sounds, because our consonant sounds tend to be very much the same all the time. It's our vowels that are weird. They get into Spanish, their vowels are very well set, but they get some changes around their consonant connotation. So as we want to look at distinctive features, it looks like that. Plus place, plus manner, I'm sorry, plus or minus place, plus or minus manner, and plus or minus voice. I would use pluses where you can, but this one, more so than in the vowels, you may find later that it's important to be able to say, hey, this only happens with voiceless consonants, or this only happens with voiced consonants. And so we may have to make a little bit of more distinction here than we did with the vowel. So we're going to get in here and say, okay, just like we did with vowels, except that we had 4 things to deal with. With consonants, we've only got these 3. So let's take a look at a couple of these. Pull up page 107, or open up that chart on page 107, and tell me, what is a stop that is bilabial and voiceless? What is the voiceless bilabial stop? Lupe. Yeah. I can. What is a stop that is bilabial and voiceless? P. Exactly. Very good. So that's a P. How about an affricate that is palatal and voiced? A voiced palatal affricate. Cynthia. The J sound, right? Now, interestingly, we can get away without putting in the palatal because all of our affricates are palatal. But in our case, we're not going to worry about that. We'll just go ahead and use the 3. But that would be a J. How about a voiced velar nasal? Selma, what's a voiced velar nasal? Huh? Yes, it's the NG sound, right? It's the in sing, right? So that would be the So far we have talked about D, and then we have the J, and then we have the Okay, great. Now, how about a voiced palatal liquid? Voiced palatal liquid, Diana. Voiced palatal liquid, it would be the L sound. So that's going to go over here. And then a voiceless labiodental fricative. A voiceless labiodental fricative. Christina. Which one? V? Nope. It's voiceless minus voice. F. It's the F, right? And then finally, I've got a, okay, Christina, be ready. Okay, get ready. What is a voice labiodental fricative? A V, exactly. Okay, so you see how that's working? Once again, we're using that one big wide chart to kind of get one view of this information. We're using this one to try to get to a simplified version that we can really work with easily on page 107. All right. Homework number 4 is going to look like that. That's part of what you're going to do. You're going to take what you put in over here, and you're going to put it into the correct column. So the place will be put into one of the columns for manner. And over here, you're gonna mark it yes or no for voice. Okay? Then I would use 107 at the end, go in and say, okay, does this match up? Then, as I suggested before, I would practice with this. Good thing. And that brings us back to the formal slide. The one that everybody likes because it's the last slide in the deck. Everybody's going this Thursday for part of it. So you sit there and you say mentally to yourself, you don't say it out loud. You say, John, just shut up and let us go. So I'll be here if you've got any questions. You know that I've got office hours, I've got a phone number, I've got text, I've got email if you have questions. And I encourage you to contact me if you've got any issues. Okay? Anybody? See you later. One of these days you won't have to wear masks anymore. Did everybody get their name on here? You guys have a good weekend. I guess it's okay to say that on Thursday. I was going to